gotta quit acting like y'all don't know why the hell y'all being stalked.
Hey, Nikki Brown here. No matter where you are and no matter what part of the world you're in, I hope that you're having a good day. Um, this is a weird camera angle. Let me get my tripod. Okay, that's better. I hope you can hear me. I don't have my microphone plugged in, but hopefully the sound is good. So, there was a 40-year-old woman who passed away. She kept saying she was tired. She went to sleep. She never woke up. She was she had a business, if I'm not mistaken, and she was really overworking herself. And there are a lot of us that are in that situation where um, we feel like in order to live a comfortable life, we have to work extra jobs or go extra hard in our business. And a lot of times we do this with no help. And so then we get judged and criticized for being ambitious and wanting more out of life. And in reality, our bodies really can't handle it, but we feel like we don't have anyone else to depend on. Um, we're often disappointed because women who look like me are the most disrespected women on the planet, right? Um, and of course, this doesn't apply to everybody because there are some very respectful men and there are some women who don't get disrespected or mistreated. But oftentimes, um, many women are disrespected at home and at work. They're overlooked, um, and they may be allowed to move up a little bit and achieve some level of success, but usually not to the same degree unless they really, really push themselves to go in a different direction. And it could be to their detriment, right? Um, Let me move the camera closer. Yeah, it could really be to their detriment because there's a tendency to overwork, like, and not even in a way that you're wanting to be an overachiever, or it's just you just want to live comfortable, right? You don't want to live paycheck to paycheck. You want to rise above the struggle and thrive, not just survive, right? A lot of people are just in survival mode and they don't want to do anything different. Like I was talking to one of my coworkers who's married and he pops junk. He talks shit. Let me just say it the way I would normally say it. Like and I do cuss sometimes. I don't curse all the time, but I do sometimes. Sometimes it's better when you say it with cuss word. So he talks junk about his wife, but he's always buying her something, and she doesn't work, but she does have a business. She makes different things, and he helps her. Like even it is directly and indirectly because he has a business as well, and so he's like, oh well, some of my clients are her clients. There's nothing wrong with that. That's building, right? That's striving to have more, to do better, and you're doing it together and you're helping her. You're not overlooking her business. Like I've been in situations where I know someone who was good at sales and I said, okay, help me. But because this person wanted to sleep with me, they didn't want to help me. They wanted me to be under their business. So it was like, oh, come help me with, how dare you ask me to help me with your business when you weren't willing to help me with mine? How does that work? It doesn't. But some men have that mentality like, oh, the woman is just supposed to follow him and make him good or make him better or make him great. But every relationship should have reciprocity. It's not supposed to be one sided. And I know that there are some cultures, you know, women are raised to be that way. But I know even within that, like say in the Asian culture, how many Asian women own nail salons? Right? Even in Jamaican culture, there's a Jamaican girl who, when she started out on YouTube, then she started making products. Then people started asking about the products, so she started making the products to sell. She now has a multi-million-dollar business from making these products. Now I know with all the DEI stuff, a lot of the stores no longer carry certain products, but her products are still in beauty supply stores. You can buy her products online. Not only did her husband help her, but her parents helped her as well. Right? So it makes a big difference when you have support. And when I say support, I don't mean somebody who's just willing to buy something. That type of support is great. I mean hands on support with, you know, your relatives or your spouse is willing to get in there and help you actually do the work. And so, like I said about my coworker, although, you know, he talks junk as if he's not okay with it, he's okay with it. He brings her products to work. Now, I have products, right? And I've brought my products to work and people will buy them. But a lot of times when people know you, they're reluctant to be supportive. Then, too, I bought a cookie from someone at work because one of the girls makes cookies. And somebody stole my cookie. So it's like you can't even put the stuff down for people to buy it because you don't know if somebody's going to take it. That's the same thing with vending. If I go out and vend and I don't have somebody there with me to vend and be supportive to watch the stuff to help me make the money, if there comes a crowd, someone could easily just pick something up and walk away with it. So it's so much better when you have support. And that's not to discourage anybody, that's not to say that you shouldn't do it. But you just have to be mindful that everybody's not honest. Everybody doesn't operate with integrity and respect. Um, Even if, you know, again, women who look like me, when we're in pain, our pain is dismissed as if, oh, well, you should be over it by now, or you shouldn't be in that much pain. What are you talking about? How do you tell somebody that they're not in that much pain? How? I had a doctor tell me that before. How do you do that? It's as if pain doesn't affect us as much as it does other nationalities. Even when it comes male, female, I work in a predominantly male industry. Male strength is not like female strength, but they dismiss that completely. Like, oh, you should be all right by now. What? What? How do you do that? With a straight face. There's no empathy, there's no compassion. It's horrible. And then when you say something about it, it's, oh, you're just making excuses. Because there's no empathy. Because they're all right with it, you should be all right with it too. Is that really how it works? The lack of respect is just, and I know it's been a build up over time, right? This is not something that just started happening. But it's just getting worse. Um, Especially if the man is not attracted to you and or you're not willing to sleep with him. There's really no respect. There's really a lack of empathy. Because we're objectified a lot of times. We're not seen as like real people who have pain, have feelings, and and if we do express those feelings, we're bitches or we're overly emotional or we're overly sensitive. Like it's not even given the same consideration. And then they have the nerves to say that we're sensitive, yet they're just as sensitive, they're just as petty, just as spiteful, gossip just as much, and all of the things. Again, it's disrespectful. But these same people have grandmothers, mothers, sisters, and they wouldn't want them to be treated that way. Yet they go out in the world and don't think that this could come back to them by the way they're treating people. Um, it's kind of sad. It is. It's pretty sad how we how we mistreat one another, and then we're expected not to say anything. You're just supposed to put up with the mistreatment, the blame, because if you do say something, they'll just find a way to blame you and say, "Oh, well, you shouldn't be so sensitive anyway," or you should just take it. Really? But they wouldn't do it. If it happened to them, they wouldn't put up with it. They wouldn't tolerate it. And this goes back years, centuries. This is not anything new. Again, this has been going on for a long time. We're seen as sex objects, merely for pleasure and to cater to certain people. And again, not everybody sees it that way. But there are men who are in relationships with women or married to women that they don't even like. They didn't marry this woman because they liked her. They married that woman because they thought she was easy to manipulate and that they could get what they want. And she would tolerate whatever he dished out and not say anything and not do anything in retaliation. When this is often not the case. I tell people you shouldn't go, if you go to sleep around this person, you should be careful. And if you're eating their food, you should be careful. Because a lot of women seek revenge through their food. And people don't realize this. They think it's all fun and games. It's all fun until the rabbit got the gun, honey. Some of these women are not as forgiving as you think they are. And some of them are cheating and they're doing it better. Some of them stay because they feel like they should. Some of them stay because you're having sex with somebody else, so they might as well have sex with somebody else. So they do have somebody on the side. When you're doing you, they're doing them. They just know how to do it and come home and not act like they've done it and not start acting funny and treating you mean and all the things that come along with, you know, with cheating. Um, Even when it comes to young people, a lot of young people, a lot of older people feel entitled, and I think I feel like I'm guilty of that sometimes, so I do my best to get away from that. But a lot of young people feel entitled because we did too much for them, and a lot of times it's with your child in uh, uh, what's his name? Guy Smiley, Ricky Smiley. Ricky Smiley did a video about this. Um, you do everything you possibly can for these kids, and you sacrifice. You give them things. We often gave them things that we didn't have growing up. Like I know personally, I bought my son a car. It wasn't a fancy car, right? Still, I gave him a car. He ran the car into a ground. I was giving him money to get the oil changed. The window was broken, so I gave him the money to get the window fixed. I was giving him money to go out on dates when he was, in college. He ran that car in the ground and then tried to make it seem like it was my responsibility to have it fixed. And that was at 17 because he graduated from high school early. But this is when I started to see the issues, like 17, maybe 16. This is when the kind of like, disrespect started. Not, maybe it was 17. That was the first time he ever yelled at me, and he cursed at the same time. He said, "I'm sick of this fucking shit." And then he ran because he knew that that was a no-no. And I ran after him. And I hit him in the back of the head with my wedge heel boot once I got tired of running. Well, wedge heel sneaker, whatever. Um, Sometimes it doesn't get better when they get older. It gets worse because they start to blame you. If their father wasn't around, they start to blame you. But they also try to make you feel guilty and ashamed. This is a manipulation tactic that kids use. And even if you set that boundary and you said, "Don't speak to me that way," and they still do it, you have a right to distance yourself. Because you don't have to put up with disrespect for anything, especially not anything that came out of your behind if you're the mom, but not even something that came out of your loins if you're the dad, right? Or your sack, whatever. But there's a special type of entitlement that they have. And so they feel that, these kids nowadays, because discipline was taken out of the school, religion was taken out of the school, right? Even in the home, if the parent disciplined the child at home, they would threaten to call child protective services. And every state is different, you know. Some people call it DFACS, DIFUS, depends on what state you live in. Child Protective Services is called something different. I mean, whatever the acronym is in your state. Um, so they made the kids feel empowered, like, oh, if my parents put their hands on me, then I can call and get my parent in trouble. Not realizing they could be taken away from the home, and that might be worse, but they weren't thinking that way, right? But it gave them this false sense of power, like, oh, I'm an adult now and I can do whatever I want to do and I can say whatever I want to say. But there was a time, and I said this to some young people at work the other day, because I said, bump you. right? And somebody who's a little slightly older than me said, "Oh my God, I haven't heard that in a long time." And I was like, "Yeah, that's old school." So they were like, "Bump, like what?" He thought he one of the guys was like, "Oh, I thought you meant bump, like taking a bump of, you know, booger sugar, nose candy, whatever you call it." And I was like, "No." I said there was a time when young people didn't curse in front of adults. And so that's one of the things that we would say. They can't even, some of these young people can't even imagine that nowadays because they say almost any and everything in front of adults. It's very disrespectful. But this is how their mind have been conditioned. Like, oh, I'm an adult, I can say and do whatever I want to do. But at the same time, some of them know damn well they don't do that in front of their parents right now to this day. They don't do that in front of their grandparents. They still have that respect for certain older people. But for whatever reason, they feel like when they get to work or when they're out on the street, they don't have to have that same respect or common courtesy. And us that are of a certain age, I don't understand it. And that's one of the reasons I said, well, maybe I do have some type of entitlement as an older person that respect should automatically come because I gave it. But then I find myself now cursing in front of older people. Like y'all hear it any damn way, so what difference does it make if I curse in front of you? Again, I don't do it all the time, but certain times with certain things, I say it like I mean it. And I don't hold back. And I don't say it out of to be disrespectful, but I just say it because the that's what I'm thinking at that moment and that's how I'm feeling in that moment. And that's how I express it. But I don't just go around cursing all the time because it's not necessary. But again, for a certain mindset that has not evolved to that level, they see nothing wrong with it, so you do it all the time in front of anybody. There's no rules, there's no code anymore. Whether it's someone who's the same nationality or a different nationality. And again, this does not apply to everybody because there are some very respectful people who speak all the time, who are very mannerable. There are some people, uh, there are some people at work, if I see them 10 times, they're going to speak to me 10 times. And at first, I used to think it was kind of weird. Like, we just spoke this morning. Why we, but it's okay because I embrace it. And it's cool because you make small talk with these people and it's a way of building a rapport with people. And you get to see how different people are and how differently people do things. Like I grew up, if my grandmother said good morning to my mother, she would just say, "What's so good about it?" And that was like one of the rudest things ever. But it was in a dysfunctional environment anyway because they would fist fight and call each other names and it was crazy. That's a whole nother story. So I grew up around disrespect and dysfunction, but I knew better. Like when I saw it, I'm like, no, this is not right. And I decided that I did not want to repeat that same behavior. There were a couple incidents where I found myself kind of going there and I had to bring it back because I'm like, no, this is not right. And I would always feel bad. But people will push you. When you're around toxic people, narcissistic people, they push those buttons. They provoke you and they try to get you to go there because they want you to follow in that same pattern that they've been on. They don't want you to be any different because if you're different, like, oh, how dare you be different? How dare you point out my flaws? How dare you try to be better and rise above this situation or circumstance in which you were born and raised? So a lot of times you have to separate yourself, you have to distance yourself, you have to move away from where you were born and raised, or you will follow those same patterns. There was a mother who did a video, and she was showing her son all the different types of bushes and flowers. She said, "You see these flowers? They're together because they grow side by side because they're just alike. And these flowers, they're growing together because they're alike." And so on and so forth. And she basically spin that into, you have to be careful what type of people you hang around because you can become just like them. There's also that saying that says, you'll be just like your top 5 friends. So the top 5 people that you hang around, who are those people? And if you don't actually hang around people, who are you watching on social media? Who's influencing you? You will be like those 5 people within 5 to 10 years. So you have to be careful what you're listening to, what you're watching, and who you surround yourself by. It's not a game, it's spiritual warfare. Whether you're religious, spiritual, believe in God, don't believe in God, believe in the Bible, don't believe in the Bible, right? If you're Buddhist, if you're a yogi, whatever. And yogis in particular are kind of like monks. If you're really into it and you live on an ashram, like, but even in that, there's corruption. But I'm not going to get into that. Um, because the ashram I earned my certification from, there was a young lady found missing. Um, she was from Chicago. I don't want to get into that. She was she was a, she was the same nationality as me, and yeah. Um, but you definitely have to be careful who you surround yourself by. You can't just hang around anybody and and expect to get a good result. And I remember one of my friends told me that, and this is so sad because I was always a good girl. I was mistreated, but I was always a good girl. And I didn't realize that some of the people, and I was warned, but I didn't realize some of the people that I surrounded myself by weren't necessarily beneficial to me. I just felt like I was having fun because I was not allowed to go outside very often. So once I could go out, I just kind of wanted to hang with fun people that were doing fun things. And that wasn't necessarily the right path for me. But sometimes you have to let people go through it on their own because they don't always listen. And it's not that they're not taking what you said into consideration, it's just that they want to do what they want to do in that moment. And sometimes you have to let them. And you can't get mad because people make their own choices. Everybody is their own person. A lot of people try to rule with an iron fist and, like, oh, well, I'm glad, my kids turned out so and so and so and so. But do you really know what they do when you're not around? Because a lot of them do things that they wouldn't do in front of you when you're not around because they're their own person. And yes, maybe they have a good career in all of the different things, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to make mistakes or they're going to make choices that you don't agree with. Especially like the pastor's kid. Almost every pastor's kid becomes promiscuous at some point, even if they change their ways later on in life. But when you're too strict with your kids, they rebel in some way, whether it's in front of your face or behind your back. And that doesn't mean that they're not respectful because even with my son, around other adults, he's very respectful. He just chooses to not be respectful. So he has a father and a daddy, although his we'll call his daddy, who basically helped to raise him, no longer speaks to him because he disrespected him, right? His biological father is a disrespectful person, so he just kind of feels like, some people feel like they're getting back what they dished out, or they feel guilty for not being there, so they just take it. I think that he's in that space. I could be wrong, but I think that that's the space he's in. I'm not in that space because I was there and I made the sacrifices and I did the things and I did my best. And even when he was like 17, 18, I said, I don't know what I did. I apologize. I did the best that I could under the circumstances, blah, 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 blah. I did all that I can do. I'm not apologizing again. I'm not going to kiss your behind. I'm not going to let you manipulate me. I'm not going to let you make me feel ashamed, guilty, or any of those things. And I'm certainly not going to let you talk to me crazy. That's not going to happen. And I'm not going to keep saying the same thing over and over again because I've already said, don't disrespect me. And you continue to do anything. And it's crazy because he asked me not to disrespect him, not yell at him, or curse at him. And I did that. I respected him. Okay, you're an adult now. And like I said, there was a time when he was a teenager. Because when he was younger, I didn't curse even in front of him. But once he became a teenager and he started acting like he didn't have no sense, I started cursing. So I agreed not to do those things. Because for a woman, if you know, he was he's like 6'1", 200, 185 pounds he was at that time. He's a little heavier than that now. Um, yeah, I could beat him, but it didn't really affect him. He didn't feel it at all. And I would, there was a time where I would punch him because who are you talking to? But again, he didn't feel it. And so those things changed. And I wasn't abusive, you know, which people try to make it seem like it's abuse. But it's like, a form of discipline. Again, not don't speak to me that way, but some people don't see it that way, and that's fine too. But as an adult, he's 32 now. You're not talking to me like that. And I'm not going to put up with it. And again, I'm not going to keep saying the same thing over again. And you're not, the behavior hasn't changed. So I haven't changed from 17 to 32, you're still doing the same thing. It's just been maybe months or years in between, but you're still doing the same thing. I shouldn't have to keep saying the same thing over again. So let me distance myself and you figure out your own life because you grown, right? You grown. And grown people do what they need to do. So do what you need to do and let's not, let's just keep our distance because obviously you think it's okay to be disrespectful. And again, a lot of young adults now think it's okay to be disrespectful. And I disagree. And so if that makes me entitled, then I guess so be it. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get off here. I hope that this information was helpful. As always, I love y'all. Lots of hugs and kisses. Mwah, 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 mwah.